Happy Monday, Women's Health groupies. Don't know where that came from. So we're still talking bone health for women this week, and I'm going to show you two other ways of loading your bones. The first way is acceleration. Well, both of these are acceleration, but one of them is acceleration with gravity, and the other is acceleration with vibration. So, when you're accelerating with gravity, you've basically got to move up against it to accelerate down. So things like running down hills, stepping off things. So I'm accelerating and then I'm absorbing the impact on landing. So bounding is bone training, right? Squat jumps, bone training. Anytime you leave the ground and land, plyometric push-ups, you've seen people do this sort of thing before. That is bone training. And a little exercise actually that sort of demonstrates how that works is if you were to slap one hand on the ground, not too hard, don't kill your hand, but when you finish with slapping one hand, you'll feel that hand is often red and tingly. That's your nervous system lighting up, and that reaction that's happening in the hand that you feel when you've slapped it is what changes the bones and changes the muscles for the better, for strength. So any kind of plyometric landing, even just walking, so we talked walking last week as weight bearing, there is a small amount of acceleration, but obviously not as much as running, and then not as much as sprinting and bounding and that sort of thing. So the other way to load with acceleration is to allow the ground to come up and meet you where you are. So on the power plate, you don't actually have to, it's better if you don't leave the surface of the power plate. You will get a bone change because every time the power plate vibrates, it comes away and it comes back. So there's a micro moment of instability and a micro moment of ground reaction force. And ground reaction force is what you're experiencing when you land. So when your power plate is vibrating, you can do your plyometric exercise without actually jumping. So I like it to say women with pelvic floor dysfunction, we can train these powerful bone and muscle positions but without bouncing up and down on their pelvic floors. The other thing that's really powerful about doing your bone training this way is we can control the angles. So when I jump, my right knee, it's going to be hard to see in full time, but my right knee, you saw it when I jumped, does that. It's quite unstable. When I'm on the power plate, I can control that angle and train that stability while making my bones more dense and my muscles thicker and more stronger. So your bone density training on the power plate anytime you're between that platform and gravity. So in a lunge position, for example, only this leg and this half of my body is getting the bone training plyometric acceleration response. This stuff on the floor is just weight bearing against gravity. So probably what we did last week with the weights and the weight bearing is where you would start. The plyometric training and the power plate training would be a progression, except if you're doing just little bits of power plate, because you can control the controllables. It is an opportunity to sort of lay down your bone a little faster. But the same as any sort of special needs training, why you would exercise, it is best to talk to your doctor first, especially if you want to be sure. If you already have osteoporosis, then you definitely should be talking to your doctor before changing up your exercise program. But these are some fabulous ideas. If you are just a woman in your prime years with no dysfunctions, you have an opportunity right now to incorporate some of these activities into your weekly routine and to start to lay down the foundations for your bone health so that later on you don't develop osteoporosis. So any questions, actually in the links in the comments I have put a link there for looking up your local women's health physio. That's important before you do anything that anything explosive like the jumps and the bounding I showed you just before, and also before you lift heavy weights, just get your pelvic floor checked because women, we're more vulnerable. And then if they clear you for those activities, boom, you're good to go. I'll see you next week.